think it is.
I would like to welcome everyone for coming today. I would like to welcome our guests, our Golden Circle members, and our wonderful philanthropy staff from the office, and of course our panelists. I'm Phyllis Froman Edgar, and it was actually hard to believe 11 years ago that I went on a tour out to Hope Circle, to the Early Childhood Center, Guadalupe Early Childhood Center. And I will tell you that that experience had a great impact on my life, a very positive impact. I feel so lucky that I found this wonderful organization that provides educational support to almost 2,000 children a year. So if it impacted my life, you can imagine how it impacts their life and their family's life. Anyhow, I want you to know that because of my great luck, I feel very fortunate that I'm able to hold this event and share my good luck with you. I also have an opportunity to introduce Maria Basmanti, who is actually a child, who was a child as well, growing up in Immokalee. She had the opportunity to join the Tutor Corps program when she entered high school. And as a result of that program, like over 300 now college graduates, she received a scholarship, she graduated college, and last year she actually got her master's degree. Maria is an example of what this program does for young children. And one of the best parts about Maria that I feel, aside from the fact that she has come back to be part of the staff at the Guadalupe Center, is she is now a mentor herself. So she is providing that kind of support to the next generation of Guadalupe children. I'm so pleased to introduce Maria.
Hi everyone, thank you Phyllis so much for that lovely introduction, and I just wanted to thank Phyllis as well. This is the second year that she's hosting this amazing event, and the Dunes staff has been so incredible and has made today very seamless. So as Phyllis mentioned, my name is Maria. I am the Director of Philanthropy and Community Engagement with Guadalupe Center. It is my honor and privilege to be able to work with the Golden Circle Giving Society, who is the group hosting today's event. It was founded 4 years ago, and today we have 27 amazing like-minded women whose passion is education. And in those last 4 years, I just want to share the impact. They have raised nearly $200,000 in support of our students and programs. They come together every year to select an initiative, and this fall they selected our Family Resource Initiative, which allows us to respond to families when there is a challenge that prevents them from focusing on education. So that is incredible, and if you have any questions, I encourage you, for anyone that has a Golden Circle logo on their name tag, to ask them about why they're a part of the group, and I'm sure they'll share their passion for it. Just a couple housekeeping items. Today's program will consist of 45 minutes of our panel, followed by a 15-minute question and answer portion, and then we'll have a comfort break, and we'll get served our lunch about noon. We will have closing remarks about 12:55 or so please stick around for that if you can. Also in your programs, we have a section where you can take notes. You're going to hear some incredible information today, so please feel free to just jot down anything that you want to ask or anything you want to remember. And during lunch, please feel free to continue the conversation and just talk to your table about what you learned today. So in the spirit of lifelong learning, the Golden Circle has hosted this panel and lunch in the last 4 years, selecting a different topic every year. And because AI is such a big part of our life today, that is why we went with this topic. It's my honor to introduce Dawn Montecalvo. She is your moderator and our Guadalupe Center president and CEO, who will be leading today's conversation. Dawn has been serving the Southwest Florida community for the last more than 20 years, and the last 10 as president of Guadalupe Center. She has pretty much tripled the number of students that we serve and has done some incredible work. So, welcome, Dawn. Please join me in welcoming.
Please, another really great round of applause for Maria. She has an incredible job with this, creating the Giving Circle and gathering such incredible women like you all here today. She's done an incredible job and very grateful. Also want to take just a moment to introduce Kelly Krupp, our VP of Philanthropy, who makes sure Maria stays in line, and the rest of her team that is here, just guys wave. Okay. There, and also our program staff who's with us, Daniel Martinez. Anyone else? Okay. Daniel Martinez, who's our director of Tutor Corps. So please, anytime there's any questions about Guadalupe, please check them out and do that. So as Maria said, I am Dawn Montecalvo, the very proud CEO of the Guadalupe Center, and I'm so excited to share this topic with you in the panel. With them over here, I kind of feel like it's a dating game, and I get to call it out and say our first bachelorette today. So I had a really great time getting to know them in this process, and I think you're all going to be very excited about what you're going to learn, because I learned a lot from them in just a few minutes. So first, the first bachelorette. I'd like to introduce Carrie Kursky, who is a nationally recognized expert on identity theft, fraud, and emerging cyber threats. Carrie is the president of the Kursky Group, a Naples-based private investigation agency that she's led since 2001. And she's a preferred speaker for NASA's Kennedy Space Center. She's the author of 2 influential books on privacy and identity protection, and the founder of Identity Fraud Institute. Carrie has been honored with numerous awards, including recognition from Congress and the Florida Senate, and for her leadership in strengthening identity theft laws and protecting consumers. She also likes puppies and walking in the rainbow. Please help me welcome Carrie Kursky, a leading voice in cybersecurity and digital privacy. Our next contestant is Heidi Kramer. Heidi is a trailblazer in technology, entrepreneurship, and AI strategy. She has spent more than 35 years leading innovation across telecommunication, global partnerships, and small business development, including serving as Vice President of Alliance Partnerships at Tango and holding executive roles with T-Mobile. Today, she serves as business consultant at the Florida Small Business Development Center at FGCU, where she's helping small and mid-sized businesses across Southwest Florida adopt AI in practical, accessible ways. Heidi holds an MBA from Indiana University, a business analytics certificate from Harvard MIT, and is currently completing her doctorate at FGCU, researching the role of AI in education. Her passion is using technology to unlock opportunity and break cycles of poverty. Sounds familiar? So please welcome Heidi Kramer, a champion for AI-enabled economic empowerment. Dr. Viviana Nevas. She brings a powerful clinical and leadership perspective on how AI is transforming healthcare. Dr. Nevas is a board-certified cardiologist with more than 25 years of experience specializing in advanced heart failure and transplant cardiology. She currently serves as section head of heart failure and director of cardiology fellowship program at the NCH Rooney Heart Institute. She is at the forefront of integrating data-driven tools and emerging AI technologies into cardiology, advancing imaging, risk prediction, and personalized treatment while advocating for ethical, equitable implementation. That's a hard word for me. As an educator, she is also shaping the next generation of physicians in an era where AI is rapidly defining medical training. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Viviana Nevas, an esteemed physician leader shaping the future of cardiovascular care through innovation and compassion. Wait, we forgot a bachelor. We don't have a bachelor today. Well, thank you so much. So, why this topic? So, I was thinking about it. We don't know what we don't know. But now AI is telling us what we don't know and what we know. So, that is a big risk, so we'd like to kind of go into that. And after talking to them, I kind of looked at this in 3 little buckets: safety, trust, and decision making. So we're going to kind of talk about AI with that lens. So I have an opening question for all 3 of you, just a quick popcorn answer. What is the one thing you want everyone to know about AI before we finish lunch today?
Great question. Really, the biggest thing I want people to take away about AI is that AI is a great tool to help you make informed decisions, but it is not there to make the decisions for you. This is something that we see being misused quite often, where people go to it and whatever it says, they're like, okay, that's what I'm going to go with. And AI can be wrong. I know it does because I've tested it and tried it. So that's one of the biggest things to take away, just like with any other tool that you're using. Use it to help you make informed decisions, but don't let it make all the decisions for you.
Okay, so I'm a huge technology advocate, so I do want you to use it safely, but I expect it to change the whole world. What I really want everyone to understand is the way to look at AI, the way to look at your use in AI. I have many roles, probably like many of you. I take care of older parents, I take care of a husband that's ill, I still try to parent my older children as much as possible. And I have to really use AI for 2 things: for innovation and for automation. So a lot of times we are looking at AI as if it's just an answer, it's just an advanced Google search. It is very much more than that. It is a way that you can automate your life. It is a way that you can use your imagination, use the power of it to make all new decisions, all new way of looking at things, to introduce it even to guide your family, your investments, all of your caretaking responsibilities in ways that you would not have even considered without AI. So that's what I hope you get out of it.
I would like you to leave here knowing that probably every time you encounter any type of healthcare, anything, blood work, imaging, or your visit with your primary care, probably AI is already involved. We are using it every day, we use it more every day, but it does have to include the human experience and knowledge. It is just an amazing tool that now helps us take better care of our patients.
Thank you. That's a wonderful framework for this morning. So AI is in everyday life. Many of us are already using it without realizing it in banking, healthcare, travel, investing. Could each of you tell us where you see AI already positively influencing women lives today and what we should be paying closer attention to? Karen, would you like to start?
Yeah, so AI, we're in such an information age right now where there's been no other time where you have access to everything and anything at your fingertips. So it really has, that's the biggest empowerment that I see, because in the past, you only knew if you knew somebody, or it was sometimes difficult to get the information. So it definitely can empower you by having that information, getting access to it. But again, you have to make sure that it's true. You have to make sure the information you're getting is reliable. So just take that into consideration.
All right, for AI in everyday life, well, actually I use it to make decisions, not make decisions, but to give me good background when I'm helping with medical issues, whether it be family or my husband. You know, I literally put in a list of his medicines in AI because he goes to different specialists, and I said, can you look at these, give me feedback, tell me if there's any issues, and sure enough, there was, because he was getting overly tired. And when you go across specialists, as you know, they're not always understanding the full impact. And as soon as he went back to one specialist and said, I have these two medicines, is this combination making you tired? They said, yes, it is. Changed everything, and his energy level was right back up. So there's one very practical use of AI. I'll tell you another one just because we're in this room and we're women in this room. I very rarely tell about this example. I'm also a guardian ad litem, so I work with foster kids, and I specifically only work with teenage girls, only because my goal is to make sure they don't come out as mothers too. So I do everything I can to empower them. And often when they're in situations, as many of you know, you're not really sure. There's a lot in the stories, and it's very hard for young women particularly to explain things that have happened. And so I have sat down with, I have helped these girls sit down with AI and explain maybe their story. Yeah, just talk to AI. You know, use AI to explain your story. Maybe you can't write it, maybe you don't feel comfortable speaking of it, use AI in a closed environment, of course, to tell your story. And it actually changed the entire course of one case I was on, because her ability to finally articulate with AI made it clear what was going on within the family structure.
As a physician, and a woman physician especially, I find that AI is kind of leveling the playing field between for gender disparities, in especially cardiovascular care, which is what I do. So there are studies that have shown that, for example, a 65-year-old man and a 65-year-old woman present to the emergency room exactly with the same complaint of chest discomfort, same clinical history of hypertension and cholesterol. So same patient, different gender. There is a bias where the woman does not get treated as fast or as aggressively as a man. And it's a bias that we all have, and it's across the board, and it's very subconsciously, like we don't do it on purpose. AI changes all that, because AI does not see gender. So if we have protocols, algorithms, where it's just a patient with certain symptoms, results, lab work, or medical history, the red flag is going to be raised, and hopefully those patients will be treated with the same urgency. So I see AI really helping get rid of that bias that still exists between women and men when it comes to healthcare.
Thank you, that's a wonderful point. So we're going to talk about safety, and Carrie, when we talked, you talked about validate and eliminate, because there's so many AI-powered scams, impersonations, deepfakes that are becoming convincing, where they're, it sounds like your husband's calling you or your grandchild's calling you, and photos. So what specific threats are targeting affluent women, and what practical steps should we take to protect ourselves and our families?
Sure. First off, I feel like I'm not going to win The Bachelor because I'm the pessimist here, so throw that out the window. But no, first of all, right now, your greatest asset is your identity. Think about over the years, when Facebook was first started and we were all using it, and then it started the like button. The like button was so they could get to know you, so that they could harness all that information, create a profile about you, and then sell it for targeted marketing and for marketers and for other third parties to buy into. Now with AI, they're not just learning, they like this restaurant, they were here, they did that. They're learning you, they're learning to understand how you speak, they're learning to understand how you think. So it's really becoming integrated with you. Quick show of hands, how many of you have an Alexa? Nobody wants to raise their hand, I'm sure. You are now using AI. When they came out with the latest update of Alexa, their AI integration went live. So you're already corresponding and integrating with AI. When you're talking to it and all that information that you're sharing with it, where's it going? Who's getting it? Mark Zuckerberg. No, that's Meta. This would be the other guy. Yeah, it's Bezos. So this would be through Amazon. So this information's out there. But like we're talking about with a lot of the scams, we've seen criminals have been using AI for quite a while. It's just gone mainstream right now because companies can now sell these features, and they're trying, the big three ones are trying to figure out who's gonna be the biggest one for global domination. I know it sounds kind of creepy-ish, but that's kind of what they're doing. Because whoever has the most data and the most users, they become the biggest one. But the criminals have been using these tools for years. So now when you get these phishing emails, it used to be look for the dear, person or dear customer, or it had improper grammar. These things are so well written that they're written better than the ones the actual companies send out. So you have to be very, very careful, and that's where we came up with validate or eliminate. So everything that comes in front of you, whether it's an email, a text, a phone call, you're looking to do an investment, you're exploring an organization to make a donation, whatever it might be, you need to validate that information to be true before you take action. If you can't validate it, get rid of it, delete it, and move on. And I know, it kind of sounds crazy, but like, I don't have time for that. The internet today, we all have the attention span of a gnat. So take the time, because all the 20-some years that we've been working with identity theft and fraud victims, the common denominator is distraction. They were doing something else, something was going on in their life that had them distracted, that when they were presented with this scam, that they, I don't want to say fell for it, but they went down the rabbit hole because there was something else going on. They were multitasking, they clicked on the link, and the next thing you know, they're right in the middle of this. So take the time, stop and think, validate or eliminate. And when you're using AI, whatever response it gives you, validate that to be true by other sources. You can ask it to give you, where is this information coming from, and then go check it out. Confirm it before you take any action.
And then, before we go to Heidi, I learned today from you that with DocuSign, because I get a lot of DocuSign scam emails, that the number on the DocuSign document, you can put into DocuSign's website to validate it. And so that was very interesting, because sometimes I don't know if it's a real one or not. And so I'm going to be using that.
So real quick, I just got back from a law enforcement investigator conference this week, and they were talking about harvesting information off the devices, because it used to be you could do forensics and you could get the data. Now you don't have to. You just contact the company and say, give me all the data, and within 24 or 48 hours. So there was a woman, she and her husband owned a company. They were going through the process of selling it. She's like, every day at lunch he comes back and he's like, really weird. I can't figure out what's going on. So they hired this company to look into it that does digital forensics, and all the assets, meaning the technology, was owned by the company. So they said, okay, great, have it send all the data, request it in 48 hours. And the one thing that they found, out of all the technology, what gave it away was the smartwatch, the heart rate monitor. They found that after every single one of these lunches, when he was acting a little weird, for some reason his heart rate would increase, not very long I add, and then go to sleepy mode. So they found out he was having an affair. The watch also geolocated, they knew what hotel he went to every single time.
Heidi, I would like you. Now you're all going to look at your husband's smartwatch a little differently. Heidi, I would like you to kind of expand on that, but talk about how women can feel more empowered when using AI to protect their identities, assets, and reputations, because we're in that 4-hour reputation.
I wear a smartwatch. So one thing about Alexa, if you use Alexa, during my corporate career, I mostly was in Chicago and DC. And one of the things that happened when I was in DC is that the first conviction was made because of Alexa. A husband said he had not been home when his wife had been killed, and it was a break-in, and Alexa said, oh no, he was here. Alexa, so that's the first conviction made by Alexa. So so it's actually the technology. The good news is technology on the other side. All right, let me give you some very practical things you can do. I always end up the pragmatist and everything. So think of AI as public square or private vault. All right, so this is when you're using ChatGPT or using Gemini. And by the way, I just heard the comments about who's going to win the data race. Gemini wins right now, big time. They have 40 years of data. That's why they just surpassed everybody else. So now they can catch up, but right now nobody is. So when you're using any of these, the one thing that you have to understand is you go into settings. Now, they all default to open information. You go into settings and turn that off. In different ones, you can only do that if you are paying for a subscription. So if you are using it free, you are giving the world every single thing you're doing. That's how you're paying for any free service. Claude, which is as much as you can be, they think of themselves as the integrity model. They will not do free for that reason, because they want to give everyone the option to turn their data off. So if you're using free, all your data is trained on. If you're using a paid one, be sure that you are going into settings and turning off the ability to train on your data. They all phrase it a little differently. They change it almost every week. It sounds wonderful. Like, why would you turn it off? Turn it off, period. All right, so that's number one, a very practical thing. A second very practical thing, and I work with a lot of businesses through, the SBDC is a grant position from SBA given to FGC, a lot of acronyms there. But so I work with businesses. My goal is to grow businesses in the area. And so one thing I will tell every business to do is every CEO or whoever on COO, CFO on Friday, go in and ask AI, what does it know about your business? Now, I admittedly also tell them to ask what it knows about their competitors, because we have a little window here that there's a lot of information out there. So go in and ask the same thing about yourself. Go in and say, what is my digital footprint? What do you know about me? Make sure, and you don't need to do it every week on yourself, but make sure that you know that. Now, the other thing about AI, the other big thing that's happening right now that is the most dangerous to high net worth individuals, particularly, is it's called NLP, natural language processing. So because of AI, and I admittedly do it all day long because I sit in the car in AI and I work through everything in life. As a matter of fact, it reschedules my full service and does all of these things. And I'm talking with it, well, now my voice is out there. Now, of course, I've turned myself off. You can't use it to training data. But my voice is out there. Your voice is out there when you use Alexa. I don't think you can turn it on with Alexa. You can turn on sharing with Alexa. So natural language processing is how most of these scams are getting you right now. So I'll give you a specific example. I was sitting through, he'd been a hacker. He has been arrested 5-6 times and now goes around and discusses and talks about it. Frankly, he's on a bracelet too, so I assume community service. But one of the things he was talking about was a specific woman in Miami, and her husband called her 4 o'clock and he said, I'll go pick up our daughter, as he always did every day. So she thought that was a weird way to start the conversation. Then he said, how was your day? She responded to that. He said something else. She responded to that. It was clearly his voice. And then he said, what is the name of her teacher again? She knew to hang up. And the reason she knew to hang up was because he wouldn't ask her the name of the teacher. He goes and picks her up every day. So as crazy as it sounds, you may be hearing the voice. AI isn't perfect yet, so look for the intonations, maybe do a check on something, because right now most of the hacks that are coming through are going after people on voice calls. And you know that through AI, you can call from any number, so you can make it appear on your phone from any number. So please watch that. That's the most. Sorry.
No, that's great, Heidi. When we talked about this, the thought of just hang up, don't get in an argument, don't have a conversation. It's just you're empowered. Hang up. That's great. Dr. Navas, I wanted to ask you about trust. With the medical field, we all, our doctors we trust the most and want to. But with AI-driven recommendations, imaging, treatment plan, how should patients evaluate when AI is helping, when to ask more questions, and not just for themselves, but also, as Heidi mentioned, many of us are just healthcare decision makers for their spouses, their parents, and their children. So, what should we be doing?
Yeah, no, it's difficult. And it's difficult for the patients and it's difficult for us. Because what we're encountering now is by the time the patient comes to see us in our office, the good thing is that they're educated on their condition or they have very good questions. The negative thing is that sometimes they already have a diagnosis and a treatment plan before we even talk to them. And it's not always the right thing to do. So I'll give you an example. I treat a disease that's called cardiac amyloid, which the diagnosis and the management of it has changed significantly in the last, let's say, 5 years. When patients come to me, if they've been told that they may have amyloid, they already come in the biggest state of depression, anxiety, and because if you go to AI or Google or anywhere to ask about this disease, the prognosis is 3 to 5 years after the diagnosis is made. That's not the case at all nowadays because now we have therapy for it. So what I do when I'm suspecting it, I tell my patients, please do not go online right now. Let me at least make the diagnosis first, talk to you first, and then you can go and investigate as much as you want. So it can be very helpful because there are things that I don't have unlimited time in my office to go over absolutely everything. Plus, patients, it's typical. They're in front of you and their mind goes blank. They ask 0 questions and then they go home with all these questions that start coming up and how am I going to find answers until I see my doctor again in 3 months or whatever the follow-up is. So I think it's helpful in giving information, but sometimes it's not that helpful. What I would say is still the number one person taking care of you is that doctor that you trust. If this is somebody that is your primary care or the person that what you were referred to for their specialty, trust that physician. And let that doctor guide you through everything that is online, AI, everything else. Because yeah, there is a lot of information, and what I found sometimes is when I use it myself to do a search for the latest clinical trials on this, it doesn't always give me the right information. There is a lot in there that is not completely accurate. So you cannot assume everything is telling you is 100% true.
I mean, WebMD isn't the expert. But going back to trust, how much, I know I've had some people that have told me they put all their medical tests and everything into ChatGPT and ask for a plan. How much information should we be sharing with AI like that? What should we be sharing our test results and asking them for an analysis?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wouldn't. Just because, I mean, we are so careful with healthcare information. There is a whole law called HIPAA where we're not allowed to share patients' information. Everything is absolutely confidential. It's part of your identity, and that's the one thing that you have to protect. So asking a question is one thing. Putting in your results for interpretation by AI, I wouldn't do it.
Thank you. So Heidi, we're talking about decision making and an exam, and talking about putting information in and saying, should I do this? And maybe some of us have done that. I feel like it's like the modern 8 ball, shake it up, should I or shouldn't I? What should we keep in mind when making decisions with AI systems, especially these large language modern models like Copilot, ChatGPT, often operate in ways that are not fully visible or understandable to the user. So the lack of transparency makes the decision-making process opaque. What should we be doing about that? Once again, the decision-making, not letting it help us make the right decisions.
Right, so let's do a couple things. So I have a vision for every woman particularly, because I think it makes the biggest difference to us, that you start your day with a dashboard. So you start your day with what are the important things that you want to know. So maybe it's a particular investment, or you're looking at a particular vertical market. You want to understand your schedule. You want to understand what emails AI were going to respond to whatever you had to do yesterday. So from a decision-making standpoint, I see AI as being able to give you very detailed and very personalized information. So what do you do to be sure that all of that information is, by the way, let me explain one thing very quickly. AI is nothing more than data analysis. There's no other magic to it. It's just pieces of data averaged. So the difference is there was a time when AI could not have understood that was a light and this is a projector and that's a ceiling. Now computers can look at images and understand it the same way our eyes understand it. So when you get a bad answer, it's actually out there somewhere. It's not making things up, even though we talk about hallucination. It made a bad connection. It saw that light, it saw it in another picture, and therefore it said, well, that's the location, right? So what you should be doing is looking first at the sources. So for, again, paid, please pay, or free, please put in nothing that's not very generic. So in the page, you should be looking at the sources. It will give you the sources now of everything. So when I do research, as an example, and I say, hey, I want to see the latest on AI applications, when I look at that, I go first and look at the sources, and I'm doing something to write an article and it gives me a McKinsey award, I probably won't use that data because I need peer reviewed, right? So of course, I'm now we're at the point of to do peer reviewed. But you need to look at that and look at your sources. You need it to use it as an assistive tool. So ask it what its opinion is on your decision making, or ask it what it thinks, but never take it as a last decision. Sit there and talk. It should always be an iterative process. And the other thing that you need to understand is that you now are able to keep every conversation. So it didn't used to keep them. You are now keeping your chats. If you are doing something and making a decision based on it, be sure that you've taken that chat and saved it somewhere, or you know where it's at. Because you need to go back to where those sources are. No different than, AI is nothing more than a research assistant, right? It's no different than your chief of staff. So you would have expected them to keep this amount of information. Now it's nothing. And by the way, you don't even need to go move it into a file. You just tell AI, for every time that we chat on this, go move it into this file. And then it will keep your chat, keep all your records, and keep everything that you know, so you know where all your sources were. That's the best way to protect yourself and to protect the value of your data, along with the other things. And then obviously, everybody always talks about HI, so the human intelligence in the middle. One of the things, and we'll get into this a little more later, but one of the things that I'm working on in research, I don't know how many of you know the Freedom Institute, but I'm doing research with them because they got an AI grant to implement AI. And I'm trying very hard to analyze how AI is helping grow in critical thinking and problem solving. By the way, there's no good measurements for growth in critical thinking.
So basically, we did a training where they said you need to build a relationship with AI, with your ChatGPT. Talk to it, ask it if it wants some, ask clarifying questions and have a relationship. So basically, we should treat AI like our girlfriends. Talk with them, get their advice, but make our own decisions, right? So don't let them make our decisions for us. So great, I appreciate that. Dr. Viviana, could you follow up with how do we maintain human judgment when making these medical decisions? Once again, because there are, especially when it's a spouse or something like that, when you're leaning into ChatGPT because he forgot what the doctor said. How do we keep it a human decision?
Yeah, I think that still that one-to-one contact, human contact with your provider, it has to happen. A lot of physicians, including me, every once in a while, we're using AI during our office visits. And the main way we're using it is to create the note so that we can have a face-to-face conversation, because I don't know if you guys have experience going to your doctor's office and the doctor is typing all the time, not even making much of an eye contact, because we are tasked with doing so many things, and we have to document everything that we do with the patient, the conversation we have, put in orders, put in results, and have something that is very clear for the next time you see that patient or anybody that reads your note. So now AI is extremely, extremely helpful in creating that note for us, and it does a beautiful job, even better than what we would normally do because we don't have that much time. So that's very, very useful. Now, keeping that human connection and experience is very important because there is such a thing in medicine as experience. Probably nothing else has that so much as medicine. When you have 15, 20, 25 years experience seeing specific cases, no AI will replace that. Sometimes cases are difficult, they're not straightforward, and sometimes only people that have seen it multiple times before will be able to make the right call, the right diagnosis, the right management. I don't think AI is at the point where it's even close to accomplish that. So I don't think we're going to be replaced anytime soon. I think it's extremely useful in helping us be better physicians.
Thank you. Carrie, we touched about the validation and how we kind of talked about criminals manipulating information to influence decisions. Can you go into a little bit more about how they're putting that information in and how it's how we can maybe recognize it better, how we can validate it a little bit more?
Sure. This is such a loaded question. I mean, we would be here for weeks if we did a deep dive in this, so it's very high level. But a lot of the information, it can be manipulated. I've manipulated ChatGPT. I was testing it out because I have a lot of clients, some are C-suite CEOs, they're using it, they're integrating it for their entire day. It's reading their emails, it's planning their schedule, it's automatically responding. Which now they're finding out that in some of these companies where they've embedded the AI into their systems, the AI is doing tasks that no one even asked it to do. It's already thinking 10 steps ahead and doing things. So it's making decisions on behalf of them without anyone instructing them to do it. So if you're talking to it and you're having it doing things, think about if you have a smart house. If you have a smart house and you come in and you tell it to turn on the lights. No, I don't think we should turn the lights on right now because I think it's fine how it is. You know what I mean? So these are things that we need to think about. But getting back to with the criminals and how they're doing everything, these companies that are integrating it, they're putting everything in there. They're like, here's our financials, evaluate them. Here's our secret sauce, our competitive advantage. Let's improve on this. Well, if I want to do corporate espionage, nowadays, I don't have to hire a crew to go do it. I just go ask the AI, hey, what's their secret sauce? And like Heidi was saying, if you're not turning off everything you're doing being in the data pool, or it's the training and training the AI model, when I ask that question and you've already provided that answer, it's going to give it to me. One of the things that you can do, depending on if you've used AI or not, and you might want to because this might terrify you, it might be okay. Go to ChatGPT and the prompt, put in, you're an investigative journalist. I want you to write me a 2,000-word article on, and put your name in. See what it already knows about you. Sometimes it'll be false, and it can be wrong. I had it, I asked it, what are my top 10 competitors? The first 3 were correct. The last 7, the companies don't exist. I went to those states, the Division of Corporations, I looked them up. They don't exist. But they have these exposés about these are your competitors and here's what they do. They don't exist. I verified them. I'm an investigator. This is what I do. They weren't there. So the criminals are using this information to manipulate you, to trick you. And if you go to AI, because now you can just use ChatGPT and say, hey, give me the phone number for Google. It'll give you a phone number, but that's not Google's phone number. The criminals are able to feed and train the AI with the misinformation. So that when you ask the question, you're getting the information the criminals want you to know. So that you're calling their phone numbers, you're going to their websites. Another one, they were using it for, there was a merger and acquisition. And there was one of the companies where they just went to the AI to say, tell us about this factory or this facility, and it came back with all this information. It was all wrong. It was all wrong. The factory didn't even exist. So this is why you have to be very careful. It's still in its infancy and it's still early. It's gonna make mistakes. I view AI as a 5-year-old. You know, when you ask it something, if it doesn't know the answer, it lies. It makes it up because it wants to be informative. But it only knows what it knows. So again, you just have to be careful because right now, identity governance, that is like you have people that are managing assets, you have people that are managing your insurance risk, everything else. Identity governance is another thing you need to take into consideration. Because like Heidi was saying, if you're talking to AI, it's learning your voice. It's very easy for that AI to then use your voice. And it can be used for different things. So validate or eliminate. If you can't validate the information, get rid of it. The other thing is, like she was talking when you're using it, terms of service. I can't stress this enough. I say this all the time. I said it in a room full of attorneys, and they're like, oh, I don't want to have to read those. They're so long. I'm like, then stop writing them that way. It's your fault. It's all the attorneys. Read through the terms of service before you use these tools. You will be surprised. Gmail. It came out that when you're using Gmail, now Google came back and said, oh no, wait a minute, that's not exactly what we meant. If you're using Gmail, Google is analyzing every single email that you're doing. If you have anything sensitive or secure in there, Google knows it. And now, if it's going to be used to train their AI, the AI is going to know it as well. And if somebody else wants to know about you, they just ask, the AI is like, yeah, I know that answer. And they're going to respond. So just use caution.
And now how are we supposed to eat lunch after that?
Like I said, I lost the date.
You're not getting picked. So Guadalupe Center, our mission is to break the cycle of poverty through education. And so just wanted to hear your take on how education is impacted by AI. So Dr. Navas, like I said, WebMD, I'm the doctor. Everybody feels like they're being educated and they know what they're doing. But how is AI impacting the education when it comes to the medical field?
So I actually think it's extremely helpful. When I went to medical school more than 20 years ago, the experience was completely different. And the access to information that we had was difficult to obtain. You had to go to a library. To get the latest articles, you have to pay for very expensive subscriptions. And you had to wait until the article got mailed to you if they didn't have it at your library. So it was extremely hard to get information. Right now, as soon as the article comes out, we have access to absolutely everything. So the latest science and investigation is at the tip of your fingers. And that's for medical students, residents, fellows, all throughout your training, you're gonna have access to that. I think we're educating better doctors that just the information is so much easier to obtain. I can be rounding with my fellows and I ask a question, and if they don't know, all of them take their phones out immediately, put in the information, and they get an amazing response. I mean, in less than 2 minutes, we're all learning what the latest is going on with whatever disease. So I think it's extremely useful.
That's wonderful. Carrie, critical thinking skills. How is AI with our children growing up, and my son is constantly on some type of device, but are we going to lose critical thinking skills as these children are growing up and leaning into AI for their education?
I believe we are. There was a study done between wolves and domesticated dogs, because they figured all the years the domesticated dogs living with humans that they would be smarter. The opposite was true. When they did these tests, the wolves, when they presented it with a challenge, they worked and figured it out, and then they found a solution. When they presented it to the dogs got to a certain point and then looked at the human to solve it for them. It's the same thing with the technology. I mean, I know for me, growing up as a kid, I knew everybody's phone number by heart. I can't even remember my own phone number some days today. And if I have to, like somebody asked me, with my husband, oh, what's his phone number? I'm like, I don't know, I have to think a minute. So it's taking a lot of that away that we used to do. And good or bad and different, depending on how you look at it, there are benefits to it. You do have access to the information, and especially for children where, depending on, you know, their demographics and stuff, if there's something that they want to learn, but they don't have the environment where they can get access to it, now they can through the internet. So I think that's wonderful. They can access these things and explore these things. But it goes back to what I said right at the beginning. You can't let it make the decisions for you. You still have to understand it. You still have to take the information. You have to validate it, and then use that information yourself. Because if we're just depending on it, we're going to be like the dogs, and the wolves are going to eat us alive.
Sounds like my dogs. Hey, we talked about boundaries when we spoke on the phone. We talked about the schools, the universities putting boundaries around use of AI with their classrooms. So professors are saying no AI, this is how you can use AI. Can you dive into what you've seen with setting up those boundaries and how it's impacting the students?
Absolutely, this is probably my soapbox. All right, so I do work with a lot of universities and a lot of companies actually setting their policies, right? So first of all, the first thing I have to say is educators work very, very hard. I'm obviously shifting myself from corporate into the education world. They do a wonderful job, but we're in a different world now. So if somebody is concerned about a student using AI to do an assignment, I'm more concerned that they give them higher than a C. Because AI is developed to do a C answer. So when you write out policies, and the average is C, right? So AI is developed to give you a C answer. You have to apply your critical thinking skills, and you have to apply your ability to problem solve, like a dog. I have 3, by the way. My pit bull's the smartest. But you have to be able to apply those skills to take the information that AI is not giving you. You have to go away from a drill and skill and into a develop with all this information that you have. So from a policy standpoint, what I work on is now we have to get children ready for the workforce as it's going to be. I do have a little story. You know, the Pope Leo chose the name Leo because the last Pope Leo led the Catholic Church through the Industrial Revolution, because he said this is the next Industrial Revolution. I 100% agree with that. Our schools were prepared, our education system was prepared to develop an Industrial Revolution. We're in the next stage where your imagination is your only boundary. Your ability to think with all this information is your only boundary. And our policies have to reflect that. Our policies have to reflect AI, have to reflect that teachers have to understand how to ask a 3rd grader to now read at what we used to consider an 8th grade level, because AI can put them there. The most important thing about AI is using it as a tool for everyone to follow their interests. So if a child is absolutely fascinated with chemistry, I was always the one done with my work in about 3 minutes and then harassing whoever was around me. She talks too much was always on her report card. So when instead of that, what if I could have had AI at my fingertips to read the next great novel, because I always had a novel in my face. So what if I had that, and then I could talk with AI about what I was reading in Wuthering Heights while everybody else is working at their speed. So that's my vision, and our policies have to reflect that.
Great, thank you. So this is our last question, and it's kind of a follow-up to the first one. So you said what you wanted them to learn, but what is the action that they should be taking on strengthening their independence, security, and legacy instead of eroding it with AI? So what is the action that they should be taking next?
Where to start on this one?
Or not even just action, but also a mind shift. What mind shift should they take, or what action should they take? How should they be approaching it?
So even though, yes, I'm the Debbie Downer doom and gloom speaker, I don't want you to be afraid of it. But in order to understand it, you need to utilize it. But utilize it carefully. Like I said, tell it. You're an investigative journalist. Write me a 2,000-word article on it, put your name in. So that way you understand what it knows about you. So in a way, you can control the narrative. You know, you tell it what you want it to know about you, as opposed to letting it try to figure it out from somewhere else. And by you doing that, you're doing it in a way that you're not putting yourself in additional risk. You can control what information you put out there. You know, just like you said, when you're talking to your girlfriends, yes, you tell your girlfriends almost everything, but not everything. It's the same thing with the AI, so don't be afraid of it. You can explore it, read the terms of service. You know, if you are gonna do anything that's a little bit higher up, make sure you're using the paid service. But ask it what it already knows about you. If it's incorrect, correct it. And if there's too much information, just like with search engine optimization, when that first came out, they found that it could easily be manipulated. So you had the criminals manipulating SEO and putting the fake bad websites at the top of search results, and the legitimate company ones were down here to try to trick people into doing it. Same thing with the whole, you hear delete me, you know, how to erase yourself from the internet. I'm going to tell you right now, it's impossible. Save your money, don't pay these services. But what they typically would do is at search engine optimization, they manipulate it to move bad information or misinformation down. So I view AI as being kind of the same way, where if you're putting it with the information you want it to know about you and you want it to share about you, you're controlling it, you're putting it out there, as opposed to being afraid of it and not embracing it and just let it run wild with everything else that it's getting. Because don't think if I'm not doing anything with it, it's not going to know me. Everything that you are using and touching, if you have an Alexa, healthcare is using it, even though there's HIPAA, things are protected, but you know, doctors' offices, banks, everyone is starting to utilize this technology. So you're out there already. You just need to know what you is out there and how much of it, and then you can kind of start to control it from there.
Now we're gonna want to leave a little bit of time for questions, so we'll make these.
Mine is really quick. When it comes to healthcare, use it to empower yourself to ask questions. I think that's the most important part. I will say, if you're gonna go see your primary care, tell AI, I'm 45 years old. I'm gonna have my yearly follow-up with my primary care physician. What test should I expect them to order? Or what questions should I be asking? That's how I would use it, so that you come in prepared with the right questions to your visits, or when you don't absolutely understand something, you can maybe get some guidance.
Okay, I'll just close with a couple of examples of this. So number one, even though I'm never gonna retire, clearly my husband and I are sort of retired and we have our portfolio. So what I do, we have somebody managing our portfolio, but what I do is I have my own money on the other side, and AI and I make stock decisions. And so I say, I want this to grow 20%, I want this amount to grow by 20% in the next 60 days. And so AI and I do analysis, only do this on deep research, don't use, only go deep, I only have pro models, it's much better. And it does the stock, and so I go in every quarter and I say, here's what I did, here's what you did. Right, so we compare an AI, so take control of your investments and make sure that you understand what can be done, right? I'm a strong believer in that. The other way, unique to women, is I have been on boards and we have owned companies, and I often been the only woman sitting there, right? And so I actually use AI to say, here's the profile of who else is going to be on there. I need to make this point. I just looked at these financials. Now, to be fair, I also had AI do an analysis of these financials. And I need to make a point here, and here's what's going to happen. You know, here's what I think is going to happen because of this person. This is how he approaches when a woman questions him. This person, this is how he, you know, I have one who will, there's one who will always do the, he's going to talk until I shut up. There's one over here who's just going to be offended that a woman just questioned me, so give me a better suggestion how to present that, and AI and I had that discussion and do that. So that's another very concrete example of actually how I use AI to make a change within my legacy and my life. You can use those and not, and again, only do that in the free, and only do that if you've got closed out training data.
Thank you so much. So when you guys go on to ChatGPT and ask it to tell about me, I'm going to make sure it says I often get confused with Angelina Jolie. So that's going to happen. So, All right, I want to be able to give you some time for questions. Thank you so much, you guys have given us so much information. Many of you might be like a little overwhelmed, but does anybody have questions? Okay. Okay.
I
Go.
have so many questions, but I'll ask one. Carrie, question for you. So we're talking about validate and eliminate. So we get a lot of these crazy text messages. You know, that whatever, I got one this morning, your guest parked in my spot. So when we report spam, like we have the option to delete and report spam, does that really make a difference? When we
Okay,
do
so
that?
the question is when you get the text messages and you tell it, you go to delete it, it says report as spam, does it actually work? It does, but remember how long it took for the scam phone calls to finally start being screened and they stopped coming through? Text messaging is in its early stages of that, because the telecommunication industry just in 2021 launched Stir Shake It, which allowed the telecommunication companies to do these handshakes to validate if a call was legitimate or not, or if it came from where it said it was coming from. But text messaging was nowhere in that conversation. So yes, now when you get that text message, especially with iPhones, if you hit delete, and then you have the delete and report as spam, what it's doing is taking that, where that text came from, the originating number, and it's putting it into a database. So that the next time something comes through and it finds that it's in that same database that's been reported as spam, hopefully it'll block it before it eventually comes to you. So it's just like with AI, and antivirus and how that was working. So yes, it might not do it right now, but you're building into this database so that eventually it will help do that.
Real quick telecom technical answer on that. It also depends on how your text messages are coming through. So if they're coming through as data and it's no different in the telecom system than email, no, that will never do any good. It very much depends on how you have it set up on your iPhone.
So you mentioned something about the guys are able to up higher on the search engine when you Google something. So when you Google something, how do you know if it's a legitimate company or if it's a bad guy singing?
Great question. So when you search something, how do you know if the results coming back is the legitimate or the fake? Well, usually the first ones that come back, you'll say ad. Those always avoid. Sometimes they're legit, sometimes they're not. I just avoid them altogether. What you want to look for is the actual URL, which is the web address. So every search result, it'll show the URL for that result. Make sure it's the company you're looking for. Like if you put in how to, where to get a free credit report, you're going to get tons of them coming back. But if it's not Experian.com, Equifax.com, or AnnualCreditReport.com, any of those other websites you're using, you just gave information to who knows who, and it's everything. So always look at the URL. With the AI search results in the past, it would just give you paragraphs and your bullet points. It would just give you answers. Now they're starting to cite where that comes from. So again, look at that. So don't just take that answer of, oh, here's the phone number to call. See where it got it from. But a lot with the AI, when it's bringing the results, it's also looking for, what's the word I'm looking for? That you're the authority on it. So it wants to make sure that it's not just, so it's getting harder for the criminals to try to manipulate, but they're always 10 steps ahead. But always look at that URL. And also watch out too with URLs. So like Amazon, they would put, instead of AMAZON, it'd be ANN. So it looks like an M. So things like that, watch out for. There'll be an extra letter or a missing letter or .co instead of .com. So just be very careful when you're looking at those.
One more question here.
I guess this question would be for anyone who's like, I've heard for the past 30 years that, most of the coders are white males, computer coders. So there's a bias as to gender, ethnicity, sexuality. I know you touched on a little bit in the beginning about gender bias, but I'm still not convinced that it's AI is this great equalizer because white males have been programming and putting in much of the information. So, are you said, AI is like a 5-year-old right now. Do you see that there will be a shift and eventually we might get there? Or still a concern?
why we use Please and Thank You. Because most of the development of the AI algorithms were done by people in countries who highly value politeness. So as they were building the algorithms, there's a lot of aspects in those algorithms that you can actually get better answers by using politeness. I still do it to get better answers today. Now depending on the thing. So the bias now, what AI does, and this is where you want to this too, is what AI does is because everything is looked at as data. You know, now everything that it's giving you back or that it's looking up is now data. The biases can be recognized. Are they wiped out? No. But can you recognize microaggressions when you're using HR? You bet. Right? I mean, I grew up in the time in the world of microaggressions were a given as a woman. You just went on and you figured it out, right? But could you recognize it now? So for instance, I was just working with a woman and they had Gemini take the notes on the back end. You know, it's part of the Google Workplace and you have that. It's really integrated really well. Gmail's we'll talk about Gmail in the emails if you want to. But I was working with her and the notes had gone out and one of the things that had been said in the notes, it was, well, she's really cute, that helps us gain clients. That's in the notes now, right? Now, then she wanted to go, she went to an attorney, the attorney said not much we can do about it. The difference is now these things are captured. I mean, I do it all day long. I do AI companion notes when I work with anybody and then I send them to them and I upload them, you know, into the system. So, or if they want to do it privately, we do it on a separate system, but it's still AI notes. So the good news is for us, not to any, that now it's being captured and you can actually run the data. But are the biases being fixed in AI? No. But at least we're going to be able to address it, or our next generation.
Yeah, very quick. In medicine, my hope is that this is just data, numbers, a cholesterol level, a glucose level, an EKG, which is just waveforms, and the red flag or the diagnosis or whatever happens that we program into it will be unbiased of gender or class, socioeconomic status, anything like that. We will just get a red flag saying this patient may have this. That's my goal.
Well, thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for our panel. We'll be staying during lunch so we can continue to ask questions or have conversations with them and conversations among yourselves. Thank you so much for being here. I'll wrap it up after lunch, but lunch is going to be served now. So thank you again. We really appreciate it. None of them want to do, sorry.